Welcome to Daily Stoic. Our channel is created to explore and draw inspiration from the philosophy of Stoicism, helping you find meaning and tranquility in everyday life. If you are looking for profound life lessons, subscribe and join us on the journey of self-discovery. I believe that my responsibility is not to create meaning or meaninglessness in life, but to determine how I respond to and act in the life I hold. As Siddhartha once said, when someone pursues something, they often only see what they are seeking, unable to recognize or accept anything else around them. They become ensnared in their own goals, and in that pursuit, they inadvertently miss the important things that exist right in front of them. Seeking is often accompanied by goal setting, while finding is connected to freedom, the ability to receive without being bound by any ambitions. You, a deserving human being, can truly be a seeker, but in the journey of conquering your goals, you may have overlooked many things right within your sight. I have always believed that whether fortune or misfortune comes our way, we still have the capacity to bring meaning to those experiences, transforming them into valuable lessons. While for many great philosophers, contemplating and criticizing the world is essential, I believe that loving the world is what truly matters. Don't let disdain divide us. Instead, view the world, yourself, and all living beings with love, respect, and admiration. Most people drift like fallen leaves, suspended in the air, swirling and ultimately falling to the ground. Only a few, like stars, move steadily along their predetermined path. They are not swayed by the wind, but are guided by an inner light, a distinct direction. Each person not only represents themselves, but also embodies something unique, a significant intersection that occurs only once in the phenomena of the world. For this reason, each individual story is important, eternal, and sacred. As long as each person lives and fulfills the will of nature, they become the wonders worthy of celebration. Within each individual, the spirit has manifested into the material. In each person, creativity must endure, and in every human being, there is a Savior being crucified on the cross. Learn to recognize what deserves appreciation and mock what does not. If you hate someone, it is essentially a hatred of a part of yourself. What is irrelevant to us often does not disturb us. Remain silent when others are critical. Smile graciously at everyone and every organization. Compensate for the lack of love for the world by giving more love to the little things in life, being more loyal in your work, demonstrating greater patience, and letting go of petty revenge stemming from ridicule and criticism. These actions are all within our capacity. There is no reality other than the reality within each of us. That is why so many people live a life that is not truly theirs. They perceive external images as reality, never allowing the inner world to assert itself. Words cannot accurately express our thoughts. They always undergo change, becoming distorted immediately after being spoken. I don't know what I can share with you other than the possibility that you might be searching too much, and as a result, unable to find anything. I have been and still am a seeker, but I have stopped asking about external matters, such as books or theories. Instead, I have begun to listen to the whispers of my own heart. Some of us believe that holding on to everything will make us stronger, but sometimes it is actually letting go that is necessary to move forward. I gradually realized that suffering, disappointment, and sorrow are not disturbances to us, nor do they diminish the value or nobility of our souls. On the contrary, they are present in our lives for a greater purpose, to help us grow and transform. Wisdom, a precious gift, cannot be easily conveyed. What a wise person wishes to share is often perceived by others as foolishness. Knowledge can be taught, but wisdom is a personal experience, a state that only those who truly live it can perceive. One may discover it, live in harmony with it, and create wonders from it, but it cannot be taught or forced upon anyone else to grasp. Love, is not merely meant to bring happiness. I believe it is more than that. Love is a challenge to our endurance. Those who lack the courage to think for themselves and become their own judges will easily adhere to external rules. In contrast, others, those who truly feel the laws within, are often the most deserving but find it hard to escape the love they have for those who harm them. I learned from my body and soul that sometimes, to grow, we must go through mistakes, feel desires, and attempt to possess assets or experiences that seem to bring nothing but disgust. I need to experience the depths of despair to learn not to resist those things. I must learn to love this life, not comparing it to any perfect version in my mind, but accepting it as it is, loving and finding joy in being a part of it. Each person has a unique mission to find their way back to themselves. Each individual's task is to discover their own destiny, not a random fate, but to live fully and robustly within themselves. Everything else is just a superficial existence, an effort to conform to the ideals of the crowd, unconditional compliance, and fear of oneself. I do not have the right to judge the lives of others. That is something that should only be done with myself. We are the sunlight and the moonlight, the sea and the land. Our purpose is not to become the same, but to recognize one another, to learn how to see and respect others for who they are. Each individual is unique and at the same time complements each other. The period of youth ends when the petty ego dissolves. True maturity begins when one lives for the benefit of others. Those who crave music over noise, joy over trivial pleasures, soul over materialism, and creative work over dry business activities may find it difficult to find a place in this mundane world. Trees, in all their beauty and strength, are the most profound teachers. I revere them whether they stand in tribes, families, in forests, or even alone. They are not like hermits who have fled from weakness. Instead, they resemble great individuals like Beethoven or Nietzsche, solitary yet magnificent in the most transcendent moments of life. The world may tremble, but their roots cling deeply to the eternal foundation, never losing their essence. They fight with all the vitality of life for a singular reason: to perfect themselves according to their own laws, to shape and establish their own identity. There is nothing more sacred, nothing more exemplary than a beautiful, strong tree. When an ancient tree falls, it reveals its deep wounds to the sunlight, and from that, every brilliant ring etched into its trunk serves as a chronicle of its entire life. These rings of years are not merely images. They are the imprints of all the struggles, sorrows, illnesses, as well as moments of happiness and prosperity. Each scar tells a story. Each crack holds a memory, from years of scarcity to periods of abundance. The strongest trees often grow in treacherous mountains, where harsh challenges are companions, and this is known even to farmer boys, who understand that the sturdiest and noblest wood comes from the narrowest rings. Trees are not just living beings, they are friends, invaluable sources of wisdom. Those who know how to listen to them, who can converse with them, will uncover profound truths. Trees do not teach dry knowledge or rigid doctrines. Instead, they convey vibrant principles unbound by trivial details. A tree might say, "Within me is a seed, a spark, an idea. I am life, the continuation of eternal existence. Every effort, every risk that Mother Nature has invested in me is unique. My shape, my veins, even the slightest movements of my leaves bear their own mark. I was born to symbolize the eternal in every tiny and unique detail. Until you transform the unconscious into the conscious, your life will be governed by them, and you will call it fate. Your visions will become clearer as you dare to look into your own heart. Those who only look outward will forever live in dreams, while those who look inward have the ability to awaken their souls." In their journey of life, humans often find every way to avoid confronting their true nature, even when it seems foolish. One cannot become enlightened merely by dreaming of images of light. One must accept and bring clarity to the darkness within their soul. You can be still and listen to yourself. Do you recognize your own absurdities and have the courage to admit them? Do you see that all the foundations you build are sinking deep into madness? If you wish to embrace those absurd aspects with kindness, open your heart and accept them. Do not fear or disdain madness. Instead, give it life, for it is an inseparable part of your being. Rejoice that you have become aware of this, for it helps you avoid becoming a victim of those very absurdities. Madness is not something to be despised or feared. It is a form of spirit and exists in all teachings and philosophies. It weaves its way into daily life, where reality is often filled with absurdity. Humans tend to seek reason, wishing to establish rules for themselves, but life inherently lacks fixed rules. It is a realm of mysteries and uncharted laws. What you call knowledge is merely an effort to force life into molds that you can comprehend. Everything that bothers us about others can become an opportunity for self-understanding. I am not what has happened to me. I am what I choose to become. A person who has never experienced their passion's fire cannot overcome it. The sole purpose of human existence, as I understand it, is to ignite a flame in the darkness of existence. Recognizing the darkness within oneself is the best way to confront the darkness in others. Loneliness does not come from the absence of people around us, but rather from failing to recognize our connection with ourselves and the world. Loneliness and suffering often arise from the inability to express what we consider important, or from holding views that the surrounding society does not accept. The clock of our minds does not merely swing between right and wrong. It truly dances between feeling and absurdity. Many nights pass as if they are longer than the days, and sometimes a single night bears emotions equivalent to a long, endless day. Throughout life, even in the presence of happiness, darkness cannot be absent. The reality is that the word happiness becomes meaningless without being balanced by moments of sadness. This indicates that everything depends on how we perceive and view them, rather than their inherent nature. Something small yet meaningful is far more valuable than something grand yet meaningless. The first half of life is often dedicated to building a strong self, while the second half is a time to look inward and learn to let go of that self. Love and power are two opposing concepts. Where there is love, there is no dominating will. Conversely, when power reigns, love is often absent. I frequently experience conflicting emotions like surprise, disappointment, and self-satisfaction. I endure pain, feelings of depression, and moments of ecstasy, all occurring simultaneously, making it impossible for me to calculate or categorize them. I cannot determine what is ultimate value or what is worthless. There is no judgment of myself or my life. Everything is vague and uncertain. I hold no firm beliefs about anything, only knowing that I was born to exist, yet I seem to be lost. I live on the foundation of something that I am unaware of. We should not be under the illusion that we can understand the world solely through reason. The truth is that we perceive the world just as profoundly through emotion. Therefore, any judgment based on reason is only part of the truth, and if it is sincere, it must also come with an awareness of its own shortcomings. Mistakes can be seen as the foundation of truth. If a person does not know what something is, at the very least recognizing that it is not something is a step forward in knowledge. It is said that no tree can reach heaven if its roots do not touch hell. My mind, with its treasure trove of rich images, creates colors and sounds for the surrounding world, and the certainty I can perceive is truly just a complex structure formed from mental images. In some way, nothing is experienced directly outside our own minds. Everything must pass through the processes of contemplation, decoding, filtering, and sometimes distorting by the mind. We are enveloped in a misty veil of ever-changing images and constant movement. All forms of addiction have a dark side, whether it's alcohol, morphine, or delusional ideals. About 1/3 of the difficulties I encounter do not stem from clearly defined psychological disorders, but from a sense of emptiness and meaninglessness in life. This could be defined as the common psychological disorder of this era. In the midst of life, there comes a time when we need to let go of our oversized ego to reflect on the deeper meanings of human existence. Integrity cannot be achieved by separating parts of oneself, but must be realized through the harmonization of opposites. In every chaos, there is always a universe. In every disorder, there is a mysterious order. I often see people become perplexed when they are satisfied with what is incomplete or wrong. They seek answers to life's questions through the pursuit of status, marriage, fame, success, and money. And even after achieving what they desire, they still find themselves unhappy and facing psychological disorders. Such individuals often become trapped in a narrow spiritual horizon. Their lives lack both content and meaning. If these individuals could evolve into richer personalities, the psychological disorders they endure would often naturally dissipate. As a child, I always felt lonely, and that feeling has clung to me even now. This is because I possess insights that seem invisible to others, or that others do not wish to see. Self-acceptance is the key to all moral issues, and the essence of how we perceive life. I practice nurturing the needy, forgiving offenses, and loving even enemies in the name of Christ. All of these are noble virtues. What I do for the least of my brothers, I do for Christ. But what if I realize that the least, the poorest beggars, the most helpless, are actually the enemies within me, and that I am the enemy I need to love? The attitude of a Christian may be reversed in this situation. The issue is no longer about loving or being patient. We can become our own critics, condemning and becoming angry with ourselves. We often hide the less desirable parts of ourselves from the world, refusing to acknowledge that we have encountered the base aspects of our own being. True wealth does not come from what we possess, but from the ability to live without those things. Act as if you treat humanity, whether within yourself or in anyone else, never merely as a means to an end, but always simultaneously as the end. All the knowledge we have begins with the senses, progresses to understanding, and ultimately leads to reason. Nothing surpasses reason. Do not seek support from the crowd. That is rarely achieved through legitimate and lawful means. Instead, seek affirmation from a few individuals, and do not focus on the quantity of voices, but rather consider their value. Genius is the ability to grasp and understand concepts independently, which would normally need to be taught by another. Enlightenment marks the emergence of man from the immaturity he imposes upon himself. This immaturity is the inability to use one's own knowledge without external guidance. Two things that continually amaze and inspire me, and my admiration grows over time, are the starry sky above and the moral law within me. Morality is not merely a doctrine on how we can attain happiness, but also how we can make ourselves worthy of happiness. There are 3 rules for happiness: something to do, someone to love, and something to hope for. Human nature often clings to doctrines that require the least self-effort and minimal use of one's own reason, and these doctrines often align best with their inclinations. Our era is one of critique, where everything must undergo scrutiny. The divinity of religion and the power of law are often seen as reasons to exempt themselves from this examination. But if they are exempted, they will become subjects of legitimate doubt and cannot demand the sincere respect that reason reserves for what has undergone the test of a public and free inquiry. Anyone who turns themselves into a bug cannot complain if others trample on them. Skepticism thus becomes a stopping point for human reason, where it can reflect on its doctrinal adventures and survey the area it occupies, so that it may choose its path in the future with greater certainty. If the truth leads them to death, then let them die. Our task is to continuously seek and confront ourselves, not merely to flee from what we do not wish to see. The vital task of philosophy is to dismantle the illusions created by misunderstanding, even if that might destroy the most cherished hopes or shatter long-held expectations. Reflect. Beauty can lie in the smallest, simplest things. Innocence, a wonderful virtue, but also extremely fragile, easily deceived as nature has revealed. Beneath that sturdy exterior are seeds, carefully nurtured and protected, symbolizing the tendencies and mission of free thought. Such thinking gradually permeates and transforms human nature, making them increasingly capable of self-governance and freedom. When individuals begin to embrace freedom, this will profoundly impact the governing principles of society, making them realize that treating people can no longer be done in a mechanistic manner, but should align with their dignity. To achieve true peace in this world, humanity must mature and become beings capable of viewing life from a broader perspective. When we make judgments about beauty, we often do not accept differing viewpoints. Thus, the perfection we seek may lie somewhere in education and nothing else. Humanity needs to be molded, for their nature is wild and rough. From the crooked wood of humanity, nothing straight can be made, an undeniable truth. Space and time are the backdrop where the human mind is bound to create experiences of reality. Thoughts without content are merely empty intuitions, while concepts without understanding become vague and meaningless. Only that which aligns with reason can truly be considered sacred. Imagine a person left alone on a deserted island. He would not seek to decorate his hut or take care of himself. He would not look for flowers or intend to plant them to beautify himself. Only by living in society does he begin to have thoughts not just for survival, but also to become a refined human being in his own way. Civilization begins when we recognize the value of sharing joy with others, feeling dissatisfied when only enjoying it by ourselves without anyone to share it with. Each of us expects and requires others to participate in universally sharing joy, as if it were a primitive contract long agreed upon by humanity. Beauty has its limits, but greatness is infinite. When the human mind stands before greatness, it strives to imagine things beyond its capacity. And although it feels pain from failure, it finds joy in admiring the vastness and endlessness of that effort. In the midst of the harshest winter, I discover within myself an invincible summer, and that brings me happiness. It reminds me that no matter how oppressive and constraining the outside world may be, within me there lies a greater strength, a better thing rising up. For many years, I have tried to live by the moral standards set by society. I forced myself to live like everyone else, speaking and behaving in ways I thought would help me fit in, even when I felt isolated and alienated. But after all, disasters occurred. Now I wander among the ruins, without rules, without faith, only solitude remains. I have accepted this, relinquishing my uniqueness, embracing my weaknesses and imperfections. I understand that I need to rebuild the truth from scratch, after living too long in a prolonged lie. If there is any absolute truth that exists in this world, it certainly does not belong to any individual or faction that claims to possess it. You will never find happiness if you keep searching for its definition. You will never live fully if you only fixate on finding the meaning of life. Blessed are the souls capable of flexibility, for they will never be shattered. Music flows like a current. Do not lead me from the front, for I may not keep up, and do not follow me, for I am not sure I can lead. Walk beside me, just be my friend. I do not adhere to any religion, but I am not an atheist either. The relationship between humanity and morality is something that cannot be doubted or denied. I have witnessed wicked acts occurring in supposedly noble contexts, and I realize that integrity does not necessarily rely on rules or principles. I consider myself an intellectual, something I never deny. An intellectual is someone capable of self-observation and reflection. I feel satisfied being both the observer and the observed. Is it possible for these two roles to blend together? That is the question we need to explore deeply. I somewhat disdain intellects that rely solely on cleverness, which means I cannot accept my own doubts. In this world, there exists a force that accompanies death and bondage, a great power called culture. Few people realize that some individuals have expended a tremendous amount of energy just to become normal. Be afraid, for it will benefit you. Take a deep breath. Look up at the ceilings. Bang your head against the wall. Refuse to acknowledge certain people and then paint pictures, write words, and feel fear once again. Let your small mind do just one thing. Act. Stay in your own world or step outside. I don't care what you do, but keep yourself always alive in fear. You will never experience everything, so bring a touch of poetic justice to your soul and simply experience yourself. When you have seen the light of happiness shining on the face of someone you cherish, you will understand that your mission is to awaken that light on the faces of those around you. To confront a world that is not free, the only way is to become so free that your existence becomes an act of rebellion. A man yearns to make money in search of happiness, and all his efforts, along with the best things in his life, are devoted to making money. Meanwhile, happiness is forgotten, and the means become the end. Seek meaning. Distinguish between sorrow and sadness. Go for a walk. The stroll doesn't have to be a romantic afternoon in a spring park where flowers bloom beautifully and scents abound, but could be a journey in the simplest moments where you can discover meanings that no brain has ever touched. Do not be afraid to spend time with yourself. Whether seeking meaning or not, as long as you still take time for yourself, giving freely and uniquely to yourself. Choose privacy and solitude. This does not mean you become antisocial or reject the rest of the world. You need space to breathe. You need to live. The evil in this world often arises from ignorance, and goodwill can cause harm, just like malice, if it is not enlightened. Human beings generally have a better nature than a bad one, though reality is not always so. But ignorance is a common trait, known as vice or virtue. The worst vice is ignorance while believing one knows everything, thereby allowing oneself to act brutally. The soul of a murderer always lives in blindness, and no good or great love exists without the highest level of insight. I still continue to believe that this world has no ultimate meaning, but I perceive that there is something that contains meaning in life, and that is humanity, for only humans incessantly desire to seek it. In society, people often rush to make judgments to protect themselves from the judgments of others. In short, anyone who harms the truth or the manner of expressing it will ultimately harm justice, even if they may believe they are serving justice. From this perspective, we must categorically deny that a journalism can be considered righteous simply because it is revolutionary. It is only truly revolutionary when it reflects the truth, and it can never be any other way. Humans, in their essence, are the only beings that refuse their own true existence. You are always worried about doing everything perfectly to achieve some level of self-worth. Your soul seems to be for sale in the marketplace. Perhaps you are deceiving yourself into believing that giving up is a failure, right? You have forgotten something important. It takes admirable courage not only to strive, but also to let go gracefully. Men are often not persuaded by reasons, sincerity, or the pains you are experiencing unless you are no longer alive. As long as you exist, what you are going through will merely be a doubt. You can only demand skepticism from them. Beauty, with its weight, can become unbearable, plunging us into despair and offering us only a fleeting moment of an eternity we wish to hold on to forever. We all carry within us memories of exile, the sins and destruction we have caused. Our task is not to expose them to the world, but to transform them within ourselves and in others. We rarely open our hearts to confide in those who are better than us. On the contrary, we tend to flee from their society. Instead, we seek out those with similar weaknesses and share our flaws with them. For this reason, we do not genuinely wish to improve ourselves and become better, because doing so would first require us to confront the judgment of our shortcomings. We only desire to receive pity and encouragement on the path we have chosen. In short, we want to stop being guilty while simultaneously not wanting to make the effort to cleanse ourselves of our stains. Every time I listen to a political speech or read statements from leaders, I shudder at the realization that for many years, I have heard nothing of value. All concepts of good and evil stem from feeling. The fact that men accept this, that the anger of the people cannot destroy empty gestures, makes me realize they do not truly value how they are governed. They are willing to gamble, yes, gamble with a significant part of their lives and essential interests. I see many people leaving because they believe life has lost its meaning. Conversely, I also witness others, paradoxically, being killed for ideas or illusions that give them a reason to live. What they call a reason to live is sometimes also the reason they must die. Therefore, I conclude that the meaning of life is the most pressing question. When I die, the principles that constitute my being will continue to play their roles in the universe and will still bring value to the larger structure of the world, just as they did in creating this individual organism. The difference between my presence in a room or in space will not be greater than the whole. The change I experience will be significant to me, but that does not mean it will become more important to the universe. A truly happy person is one whose life aligns with their nature and character. However, what is even more valuable are individuals who have the ability to adjust themselves to adapt to their surroundings. Beauty is not an inherent attribute of things. It exists only in the mind of the beholder, and each person perceives beauty differently. One person may see ugliness where another perceives beauty, and each individual should respect their own feelings and perceptions without trying to adjust the feelings of others. The search for true beauty or complete distortion is meaningless. just as trying to define real sweetness or bitterness is. Live like a philosopher, but at the same time remember that you also need to maintain your humanity. Heaven and hell are often regarded as two contrasting states, corresponding to good and evil people, but the majority of humanity lies somewhere between sin and virtue. Each person's perspective on everything is a result of their understanding. Their actions are shaped by what they comprehend, the character they possess, and the emotions they experience. The identities we assign to things are merely hypothetical concepts created by the mind, not an inherent nature attached to what we refer to. Generally, mistakes in religion can be quite dangerous, while mistakes in philosophy are often merely humorous. When humans feel most certain and arrogant, it is usually when they commit their greatest mistakes, believing their views are driven by passion without proper consideration. This only protects them from the most irrational things. Epicurus's old questions remain unanswered. If God wishes to prevent evil but cannot, is he powerless? If he can but does not wish to, is he malicious? If he has both the ability and the will, why does evil still exist? If you hold any book on theology or philosophy in your hands, ask yourself, does it contain any abstract arguments about quantity or numbers? Certainly not. Does it contain any empirical arguments related to events in existence? Again, the answer is no. So, discard it, for it only contains private histories and illusions. I dare say that the majority of humanity is merely a collection of different perceptions, unfolding continuously at a dizzying pace and always in a state of flux. The sweetest and least harmful path in life leads us to science and knowledge. Anyone who can remove obstacles on this path or open new horizons deserves to be considered a benefactor of humanity. It is foolish to think that the divine has passions like humans, including one of the basest passions, an unending craving for praise. While the body must endure pain and hardship on this planet, thought can transport us to the farthest reaches of the universe, even beyond the finitude of the universe, into an infinite chaos where nature may exist in complete disorder. Things that have never been seen or heard, or even merely imagined, are within the capability of thought, except for what is absolutely contradictory. All emotions are valid because they pertain to the self, and nothing exists outside the reality we live in, regardless of how conscious we are of them. However, not all definitions of understanding can adequately explain or shape the reality we experience. All emotions are accurate because they relate to something beyond themselves, which is the specific reality that does not always meet certain standards. In our arguments about specific events, there are many levels of assurance that can be imagined, from the highest certainty to lower moral evidence. Thus, a wise person will know how to adjust their beliefs based on the available evidence. Would a rational person chase after bizarre tales of monsters or fairies? And would they truly delve into discussing the evidence? I have never seen anyone seriously consider and reflect on nonsense without a shred of belief in it before completing their survey. We must accept that a certain level of selfishness exists within human nature, as this is inseparable from ourselves and has become ingrained in the framework and structure of human essence. Through this self-reflection, we adjust the critical emotions that naturally arise when faced with opposition. Nothing is more surprising to those who examine human issues with a philosophical perspective than the fact that so many people are governed by a minority, as well as the blind obedience that individuals are willing to surrender their own feelings and passions to those in power. When we investigate how this miraculous phenomenon occurs, it becomes easy to see that power often stands with the oppressed, which is why the rulers have nothing but opinions to support their authority. Thus, opinion is the foundation upon which governance is built, and this principle applies to both the most dictatorial or military regimes as well as the most liberal and democratic governments. Egyptian soldiers or Roman emperors may act brutally toward the feelings and inclinations of innocent citizens, but at least they must lead their soldiers in a way that allows them to perceive those citizens as human beings. For my part, when I delve into what I call the self at its deepest level, I always encounter specific feelings such as hot or cold, light or darkness, love or hatred, pain or happiness. I have never been able to recognize myself without some sensation, nor have I ever been able to observe anything outside my emotions. If someone, after serious and unbiased contemplation, believes they have a different concept of the self, I must admit that I cannot continue reasoning with them. All I can accept is that they may be right as I am, and that we may fundamentally differ in this aspect. Perhaps they perceive something simple and continuous that they call the self, although I am certain that no such principle exists within me. Thank you for following Daily Stoic. We hope that the reflections and philosophies we share have inspired you on your journey to seek meaning and tranquility in life. Remember that each day is an opportunity to grow and explore yourself. If you find this content helpful, please hit the subscribe button and share it with your friends to spread the good values together. Let us accompany you on the path to conquering yourself and living a meaningful life. See you in the next videos.